What is up, everybody? This is Verdict, and thank you so much for stopping by. Now today, as the title suggests, I have a very important video for you guys, and that is the main question. Well, why did Maegu fail? Or did it fail? What happened with the class? Why did everybody, after less than a month, they dropped the Awakening Maegu and they're back either on Succession or to their main classes? And so much so, in fact, that there's barely anybody playing Awakening Maegu right now. In this video, we will go into a little bit of a critical coverage of what the class's issue was. I grinded for about 50 hours, less than a week after her release, and in general, my stance on the class still kind of stays, but since I've been playing her more and more since then, I kind of feel like I can add a little bit more nuance to my rating at the time, which was 5 out of 10. Now, before we start this video, creator code event Verdict is up and running up until the 16th of August. So if you do wish to support the channel, then by all means use the code Verdict when purchasing your ACoin off of the NA/EU website for the client exclusively. It is really the best way to support the channel for now. Let's talk about Awakening Maegu. So from the get-go, reception, what happened? Everybody was extremely excited about Awakening Maegu. The idea was very clear at the time. Awakening Maegu was supposed to be a high APM, very complex character, and everybody was kind of pushed away instantaneously when they heard high APM. Nowadays, people really prefer just to grind on something simple. You do have to grind your eyes out anyways for gear, so why furthermore complicated when you can simply play something like Succession Berserker or Succession Maegu, low APM classes that pretty much provide high amounts of rewards compared to what they actually have to put in as effort. So with that being said, the reception was immediately splitting the entire player base into two: people that really enjoy this particular playstyle and people who absolutely detested it. So from the get-go, the moment they announced that Awakening Maegu was going to be a high APM class was when she lost 50% of the entirety of the player base, or rather the potential player base. So once everybody started grinding on Maegu, what happened? Well, the first notion was immediately, less than 10 hours into everybody's grind, people were kind of understanding that she requires too much effort for not too much reward, and this was one of the staples about the class. This was so true. As I stated into my previous video about Awakening Maegu, the 50 hours one, well, I did have a very unhealthy obsession with my Awakening Maegu. I do love the class. It is, for me, a little bit of a better Succession Mystic, a little bit of a more nuanced Suck Mystic, or in other words, a high DPS class. We will come back to this in a bit, so don't lose that train of thought. Now, let's talk about the gear score. See, Awakening Maegu, it was really interesting when we saw what type of base accuracy she was bringing on from the character on its own, just the base stuff in itself, the abilities. They were very polarizing in terms of everything from AP to accuracy to evasion debuffing, and let's cover all of that really quick. So the accuracy proved to be the first point of contact issue for Awakening Maegu because she had no evasion debuff, she had no accuracy buff, she had nothing but 3 or 4 abilities that had very, very high accuracy, and the rest, the fillers that were used from the Spirit Forge mechanic, well, they were meant to kind of be the bread, or rather the butter of the bread, and once these abilities started missing, everybody was kind of like, yeah, this is a little bit weird. So from the very get-go, everybody was pushing back to the Elcar meta, and that's something that you do not want to do nowadays in Black Desert. You want to be full-blown AP, and you want your class's accuracy to carry you on, or rather kind of fix that with add-ons, debuffs, etc., this and that. Overall, the first issue with Awakening Maegu was the accuracy/evasion. There was nothing. Let's go back to my main, which is Succession Mystic. Even though I do play Awakening nowadays because she's just so much better, Succession Mystic is the perfect DPS example class that has no accuracy issues at all. We're talking, it's a class that has 12% accuracy buff from Nature's Wrath, and you have another 12% debuff from Thunder Pound, and you can put a 4% accuracy. On top of that, you get the idea. You can make an entire class literally carry your accuracy issue, and this is something very, very important nowadays in this current Black Desert Online meta. So once that we talk about the accuracy, see, Awakening Maegu is meant to be a DPS class, guys. The class is not meant to throw out all of her abilities in a burst-like fashion. She can, so can Succession Mystic, but overall throwing out your abilities in a burst-like fashion sets you up for a potential failure down the road should you need to really put out, I would say, that rotation, or rather prolong that rotation. This is something that is very familiar with me, and especially my Succession Mystic. There are a couple of combos over with Succession Mystic that you can use your abilities in a high rapid burst succession, but once you do that, you're sitting for about 8 seconds or less, kind of rotating generators up until you have all of the abilities up and ready. It's kind of the nature of a DPS class, and Succession Maegu is designed to be a DPS class. So from the get-go, DPS classes suffer from something that is very important for us to talk about. That is the geometric growth of these classes. Now I'm going to get a little bit technical, but please don't shy away from this conversation, as it is very, very impossible. I even kind of bumped up the chair a bit. So overall, guys, the geometric growth of these DPS classes like Succession Mystic, like Succession Striker, we are really suckers for attack speed. We're talking attack speed is the main form of damage. There is nothing bigger. No AP can, almost no AP can make up for the attack speed. It is so important for us to be able to throw our abilities as fast as possible, to the point where if you have ever played Awakening Maegu on Gyfin Lower and you kind of start your rotation and you don't have a Z buff, it kind of feels very poor. It feels extremely poor even, but the moment you get your Z buff, all of a sudden your class gets so much more stronger compared to if you've played any other classes and you pop a Z buff to them. This is the truth about geometric growth, the scale of which attack speed DPS classes are meant to overtake. So in general, this is the same for Succession Mystic, this is the same for Succession Striker. If we don't play with our Z buffs up or our steroids up or whatever, you know, we kind of struggle. This is why Shies are so important for these classes. They're called enablers because Shy really makes and breaks Succession Mystic and Succession Striker. So let's talk about the passive. I know the passive is something that people are still to this day fighting on how the passive works. We have people explaining the passive works this way, then some other people add nuances that it works that way. But in general, the passive is still kind of misinterpreted by everybody, myself included. There's so many hidden nuances to this that unless you actually go and look for a guide on somebody explaining you that passive, you will probably fail miserably up until somebody explains this to you. So let's talk about her overall damage performance. I know people really like to talk about that one guy that did 22k on Hex Sanctuary over geared to his teeth, but let's really be flat on the ground, 2 feet, and kind of talk about this. Awakening Maegu's damage is just not desirable anywhere. You can really go into any other classes that are probably 3 times as simpler as Awakening Maegu and really get more off of them. So Awakening Maegu's damage, based on what she has to do to dish that damage, well, it's not really worth the play. With all honesty, it isn't. I know people don't want to hear it, but hey, the motto of the class is too much effort, not enough reward, and that is really true. Yes, she can probably pump above 21k on Hex. Yes, she can probably get 1450 plus on Gyfin Lower if you really try hard. But still, if you're going to play a class for 1 hour and it's going to feel like 3 hours, my point being is that if Awakening Ninja, one of the highest APM classes in the entire game, known as the Finger Breaker, becomes tomorrow 5% better than Succession Wusa and is overall the best grinder in the entire game, how many people do you think would play Awakening Ninja when Succession Wusa is only 5% behind and is ridiculously simple to play compared to Awakening Ninja? My point being exactly that. It doesn't matter how hard a class is, as long as it's not too hard for the reward that it's reaping. Okay, so let's talk about the pre-awakening skills, because they really are quote-unquote the bane of the class. If you're going to have an awakening class, right, this is kind of something that Pearl Abyss have been adequately failing, and that is to create proper awakening specs that do not depend on the pre-awakening at any given time, or rather they depend too much onto the pre-awakening skills. Awakening Maegu is no exception to that, my friends. Awakening Maegu goes into pre-awakening so often to the point where it's actually getting out of hand. The more mobs you see around you, the better it would be to go into pre-awakening and throw out your Shift F or Shift RMB or SLMB, just pull from afar. It doesn't matter your RMB for debuffing. It's overall a lot simpler, a lot easier to execute. If you're going to go in pre-awakening, buff yourself up with the tier 3 add-on, debuff, and then go into awakening, you're going to see an incredible increase in performance. In essence, it's a way for you to set up yourself in pre-awakening for awakening, but the issue is that you do lose the passive and you have to restack it once you go out. And let's finally talk about PvP. Now, I'm not the best PvP guy around for awakening Maegu, so just take my words as really kind of what I have seen. I have noticed that almost all Awakening Maegus really want a grab. The class seems to not be working at all into the PvP scene right now. She has a few very good combos for, fighting DR classes, but the moment Awakening Maegu meets a Mystic or an Evasion Sage or any Evasion class for that matter, she literally drops flat on the ground begging for mercy. She has no ability that can shred that evasion. Yes, she has 20% accuracy on a couple of them, but for an example, as I said earlier, Awakening Mystic, Succession Mystic, all of these evasion classes with high accuracy, recently buffed Awakening Hash with the accuracies. He is absolutely stunning. But Awakening Maegu needs a lot of work to be redeemed. So with that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I did try to make it as entertaining as possible, and this will kind of be, I think, the end of Awakening Maegu. I recently came back to her just for a little bit, but overall, I don't really miss her. Even though she's a great class, I really love the playstyle. At some point, I have to admit to myself, well, I kind of do prefer going Succession Mystic because they are into the same range and Succession Mystic will pull exactly the same as her, if not even more. And if I wanted to be a better player in general with Awakening Maegu, I had to put too much effort in it to make it work. I hope you guys enjoyed. Take care and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.